Okay, hello everyone. I am going to introduce Charlene, otherwise known as the Art Oprah. Charlene Stevens earned a BA in art history at UCLA before studying art and education and photography at UCLA and film and photographic studies at the University of Leiden. Upon her return to the United States, Miss Stevens founded a digital art publication, Arcade Project, in 2016. Last year, she launched a nomadic contemporary art gallery, Arcade Project Curatorial, during the height of the pandemic. Miss Stevens is a contributor at hyperallergic.com, Foam magazine, and the art newspaper. Miss Stevens lives and works in New York.
Hello, I'm Charlene Stevens. Thank you, Esmé. And I would like to introduce this week's guest, Jeffrey Augustine Songco. And Jeffrey is a multidisciplinary artist born and raised in New Jersey to devout Catholic Filipino immigrants. His artistic identity developed at a young age with training in classical ballet, voice, and musical theater. He holds a BFA from Carnegie Mellon University and an MFA from San Francisco Art Institute. His artwork has been exhibited throughout the USA, including the Mattress Factory in Pittsburgh, the Loke Museum of Asian Pacific American Experience in Seattle, Spring Break Art Show in New York City, the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts in Grand Rapids, and the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. In 2017, he was featured in the publication Queering Contemporary Asian Art, and he was the installation category juried award winner at Art Prize 9. His writings have appeared in Art 21 blog, Bad at Sports, HuffPost, and Hyperallergic. After living in Pittsburgh, Bushwick, and San Francisco, he currently lives and works in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Hello, thank you so much.
So, I love this show. I read the Forbes article. Brianna Walsh reviewed it, and I just there's something about this, it just it hits all of the notes of nostalgia with a twist, and it hits like those notes of Americana. And it reminds me of when I was, before I moved to New York, I lived in the Netherlands for a few years. I was going to University of Leiden, and one of my Dutch colleagues said that when she thought of an American, she didn't think of me, that what she pictured was be a blonde cheerleader like in the movies. And, and I was taken aback because I always thought of myself as an American, but, what has always been, put out there is that American equals whiteness. And that's what's been like broadcast globally. So in this society of 23, where you have cast yourself in all of these roles, of Americana, I see this subversion of that narrative. And can you tell me a little bit about, this is still up, right? It's at Mattress Factory.
That's right. Yeah. So this is what you're looking at is the Society of 23's trophy game room. It's an installation that's up at Mattress Factory in Pittsburgh through November, and there'll be some more photos of details and things like that. And a big part of it is pageants. Right on the right are kind of these pageant portraits of these brothers who have won the Mr. Society of 23 pageant. And I love what you were talking about this casting of a body to play American, and someone in the Netherlands doesn't think that you are the right person to be an American. And I think about that often. I had a childhood in theater and performance, but also it actually brings up to mind one little thing, which is Miss Universe 2015. That's the year that Pia Wurtzbach from the Philippines won Miss Universe, and the famous Steve Harvey mistake where he announced the wrong winner. That year, I followed Pia's press junkets and everything as Miss Universe. And there was one interview where she said that, the top three that year were Colombia, Philippines, and USA. And Pia just thought that Miss USA was gorgeous and beautiful and a true American because she was white and tan and had the beautiful blonde hair, like a California person, like surfer chick, right? So I always think about how people think of what the American role is, who plays that role. But then that also brings me back to, my childhood and, going to auditions and, in the early 90s, late 80s, you hope that you see a casting call that right at the end of that paragraph, it says all ethnicities welcome, right? So for me, knowing at a young age, at 8, 9, 10, knowing that I'm the all ethnicities, that I'm not necessarily that American guy or that American boy, or even the word I, if we're casting a kid and it's from the kid's perspective and I have to be, a fun kid, who is I? I is not an Asian American boy, right? A brown boy with black hair. So things like that have been with me for many years. And that is now part of this project, which I call the Society of 23. And spoiler alert, I play all 23 brothers within this secret society. And so this is my opportunity to cast myself. And also this world is seen through the lens of America, right? So I'm casting myself as the American protagonist within this group.
And I love this because I've been like really I just binged Kim's Convenience in the last couple weeks. I just watched, oh my goodness, the 5th season just dropped on Netflix yesterday, and I binged like 4 seasons over the Memorial Day weekend, and where it's not only about the Korean family, but it's about the South Asian neighbors and the Chinese friend, but it was like a lot of representation. And it's a pity that it was in Canada. It's like, why don't we have something, why isn't there an American show like this? I mean, I think they've tried and we are getting better on representation, but it's still something that's very new. I think the fight has just begun to be seen.
Absolutely. And I'm part of the group that was so excited for Crazy Rich Asians to come out. I loved it. I read all the books, like I am so excited for this representation in pop culture. And perhaps this is my artwork is my contribution for that body to be seen. And that's probably why you see a lot of photography of myself when you explore kind of my work and stuff.
No, I mean, it's such a, and I love this critique on just like, images of, Americana, and just like the setting is, I love this, we were talking, when we were meeting before, earlier this week about, because there was one article that, said it was like the basement of a frat house. And I'm thinking more of like a VFW or some kind of other community club in, and I'm almost thinking in like in the Midwest or a Rust Belt town, and, where, we're just like, the beers are cheap and you can have a wedding reception there or a pageant, with the tinsel. But it always has that kind of run down, but kind of gussied up look to it. And, the setting is so Americana. And I don't know, could you tell us a little bit like how you came up with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pittsburgh, I actually went to school in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon. And so Mattress Factory was a place where I learned what installation art was for the first time. And now coming back to the space, and all of this was done remotely actually because of the pandemic. So I did not travel to Pittsburgh for this residency, which culminated in this exhibition. But I knew I wanted to do something site specific. And to me, that was a lot of my memory and my history with Pittsburgh itself. And from the get-go, you can see all this gold and black foil curtain. And that's actually a reference to the Pittsburgh Steelers because gold and yellow and black are their colors. But for me, and having the Society of 23, I was actually in a fraternity in college. And so that was a big part of my identity and growing up and becoming a man. And I was actually closeted in college too. So there was, closeted comes with its own set of things. And for me, that was being depressed and, not loving myself and things and trying to blend in and belong. And the Society of 23, after college when I created it, became this place where I could belong. But I was definitely informed by the experiences that I had in a predominantly white, group of men, and how we all were trying to become these people. So within this room that I call the trophy game room, I placed a lot of things in it that essentially describe greatness. And this work was actually supposed to debut at the end of 2020, but it ended up debuting in March of 2021. So as I was conceptualizing it and coming up with the ideas for the installation itself, I knew it was going to be right after the Summer Olympics and right around the time of the presidential election in America. So there was the idea of sports and politics, right? And we had just come, and we are just kind of coming from this, four-year administration where greatness was such an idea, this return to greatness. And I wanted to take my own take on what greatness was. So this was my opportunity to be happy and to shine and to pat myself on the back, because it's been a challenging year for many people, right? And here, what is greatness? Well, for me in America, at least, there's this idea that to be great, you have to be like really good at something. You have to be really good at sports. You need to be competitive at something. You need to win awards, right? And so all those things got packed into this room. And as part of my practice, I create rooms for this brotherhood. And hopefully one day in 20 years, I'll have all these rooms and I can have one large show and all these rooms are kind of connected to each other. But for right now, I just kind of have these kind of separate rooms. And so within these rooms, the brothers get to do things. This specific room is where brothers get to relax, play games, and bask in their awesomeness. So one of the biggest things you can see here right now is bocce court. So we installed a bocce court and there's sand and there's actually some black and gold glitter within the sand. So it kind of shines as you pass by it. And then there's a piano where the brothers can play piano, and there's a foosball table there as well. So the room has a lot of different components, and you start exploring what it means to be great.
That's a difficult installation not to touch. I mean, I would be tempted to play bocce in the installation or play foosball. But I mean, you've really hit the aesthetic on the nail. I mean, the nail on the head. It's some. But let's go to some details, Esmé. This is the big. This is a great. Who photographed this? It's like a lovely installation photo. I'm just admiring the photography right now because
I know, I'm so happy. Thank you, Mattress Factory.
Okay, let's look at another detail. Oh, this is the pageant.
This is the pageants. These were really fun. And so these are photographs that I took of the brothers, also myself. And my practice is interesting because all the brothers have a name. They all have a first and second name. And when I make these gestures, or when I have to decide which brother does what, I actually use a lot of chance. And actually, right here, I'm holding a 30-sided die. So dice. So I actually roll it sometimes to determine certain things. And so I knew I wanted to do a series of pageant portraits, but who was going to win those pageants? I haven't had a pageant yet, but I knew I wanted to create this series. So I actually just rolled the dice, and it corresponds with a brother's name. And so then that brother has kind of an identity already established, right? And so I perform the role of that identity of that brother. And certain brothers have a certain smirk or a certain color that they like to wear. And in fact, for these individual portraits, I was inspired by a photo that was taken of Miss Universe after she had won her crown that year. So this is, I believe, 2015 through 2021. And the brothers are wearing a kind of ceremonial cape plus a crown and a sash, and below each photo is the actual sash. And then to the left, it got cut off, but is the two crowns, because they've evolved and they've changed the design of their crowns. So I try to get very, and it says Mr. Society of 23 on the sash. And some have tassels, some have a different color. So I try to think about, the evolution of organizations. So this is just like, how would my pageant change over time? It's like, we're bored of that crown, let's update the crown. But this was a really fun project. And the photographs are actually printed on fleece blankets. So that gives it a different texture, saturation, as well as it feels good. It doesn't feel like just like a stark, photograph that's behind glass. So it just feels a little more real when you're in that space. And then final thing is, if you look at kind of the scale of it, it's almost to scale, it's a little larger, but also the sash is kind of like in a position where it could be a body. So I definitely think about bodies and spaces and choreography of bodies as a former dancer as well.
So who do you have the names available? Like who are and I think, who are the brothers?
I do. So actually, if you go to societyof23.com, you can actually see like profiles of each brothers. But for example, there's me, there's Jeffrey Augustine. A favorite brother I have is James Jonathan. He goes by JJ. He's kind of always happy, and most of his expressions just have his eyes very wide open. There's another one named Brian Anthony. He's kind of the good-looking brother who always has to have his clothes like ironed. So, his hair perfect. So that's a little bit more challenging for me as the performer to do.
Yeah, and so you created these personalities using what is it RPG?
Yeah, so essentially I create these identities, and in fact really the artwork itself is the archive and the bio of each brother. So when I was in grad school back in 2011, one of the big projects I did was a hazing series, and each brother essentially got hazed, right? And so each brother then has photographs of a hazing, and each photograph is named after each brother. So then I look at the positions and I look at how that self-portrait photography was created. And as I move forward from those projects, I use the artwork itself as a way to inform how that brother is going to be, right? So for example, these 7 photos that you're looking at now I know that 7 of these 23 brothers have won this competition, and now they have another moment in their bio. And I can look at to see, what shirt color they had. So now I know that this brother here in the center wanted to win with red, right? So these little things that we think about in our own lives, like why did I decide to wear this hoodie? Why did I cut my hair recently? Like what am I preparing for, if anything? I think these little moments that we have, it's just like looking through our photo albums in our phones, right? Like we're creating our own identities through these moments, and those moments become part of who we are.
But it's like a living document. Like, there's
Exactly.
always, it's always living and growing, but that's a lot to keep up with, like 23 characters.
Speaking of living document, that's really cool that you bring that up, because the other largest component of this installation can only be seen on 2 monitors within the installation. I think we might have a photo that coming up of it, but there's.
Esmé, can we go to the next photo?
Oh yeah, but we can come back to what I was going to say, but when we get to that slide. Okay.
Oh, and this is one of my favorites. This is what I was using on a lot of the promo, because, and this is another thing where, we're not used to seeing like the brown bodies in these scenes. But this, like, I didn't even think of, like, when I think of the number 23, I think of like that service. I don't think they're 23andMe, where you could like send in for your DNA test. It's like, half of your chromosomes is the 23 out of 40, and And I thought of it like cloning. Like, yeah, I know it's, when you're telling it's siblings, but, it's like you're, cloning yourself into every scene of Americana. Well, like, so we have like siblings, cloning, we had casting, you're casting yourself, which I love with the, with your history in the entertainment industry. And is there anything else, like anything you want to add to this image?
Yeah, so this image right here is actually called Great. So this would be kind of the highlight of the installation in terms of what the grand concept really is, which is greatness. And so I titled this Great, and it's 23 brothers wearing red caps that say Society of 23. And then we've got the front character, if you will, on the right, holding up a trophy. And that trophy is actually in the installation space itself on top of the piano. I love this image because my residency was in January, and a lot of my work is controversial, and I appropriate from American culture. And when the Capitol riot happened on January 6th, I was like, I need a photo for this installation that's a team portrait. And I just thought this was perfect. I just thought this was the moment to do it. And the red hat was always going to be within my installation itself. The red shirt, I ordered the red hat and the red shirt back in December, and then the Capitol riot happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need that group movement. I need that charge forward. And so actually with the Mattress Factory, when we were trying to promote the show before it had opened, I was asking them to please include the trophy, because the group photo without the trophy, if you even just put your hand on your screen and cover the trophy, was such a trigger. Yeah, right. It was such a trigger, and the Capitol riot was so fresh that I didn't want to cause so much anxiety in the viewer seeing this image without the trophy. And I needed it to be resolved because that hat was so fresh after January 6th. But look now, it's beginning of June, and to see this image it's different. I think it still brings up issues of, nationalism and hatred, really. But it can certainly work towards a team idea right now, not so fresh from January 6th.
Yeah, but and thank goodness, but you're right. Like, I think we'll all be triggered by red caps now for a while. Like,
right.
And I had there's a question from Frank Fleischer about the number 23. Reading about, he's like, I read about the number 23 in a book, Cosmic Trigger by Robert Anton Wilson. So I think this number like is, how did you come up with this number? Because it seems like it has a lot of meaning. Like, it's like when it hits the viewer, everyone's putting it through a different filter.
And that's the best part about art, because everyone can bring themselves to it. But honestly, quick answer, I was born October 23rd. And if I was born October 10th, it would have been a different number.
Okay.
So a lot of my work is actually quite quick in those gestures. But as you can see, I kind of keep those gestures and just keep developing on top of this base that I made a while ago.
Well, I guess you were, the 23 was meant to be, just like, the day you were born, and just it just has so many, different meanings to different people,
Absolutely.
And yes, you're right. I mean, that is, I think that is what art is supposed to do. Is like, that when the viewer, takes a piece and, and puts it through their filter, and it has like a whole different meaning. Because you kind of, you relinquish the power over the meaning of things as soon as like you put it in the hands of the audience.
Exactly. And when you just saying that reminds me of how people sometimes say that I'm so brave to do self-portrait photography. Like, how do you do that? That's the fun part. I think putting myself out there is the fun part. It's the relinquishing that can get a little hard for me as an artist, because I'm giving that part up. I'm surrendering that part up for you, for your interpretation. And, I might have my own interpretations, and I hope that that's the way it can be seen. But I've learned enough times, especially with public art that I've created, that that's not always going to be that case.
Yeah, I mean, like, even when, you get reviewed, you can have two journalists with completely different, interpretations of your work.
Absolutely.
And I find it very interesting. I love like reading, like looking at work and then reading the review and then also try to find, what is different between like what I got from it than the critic. And yeah, but it really just like there like just infinite ways of reading something.
Absolutely.
Out there. Can we go to the next one?
Yes, so here's the piano again. And what was great about this installation was that the Mattress Factory has such a lovely community. And so they reached out to the community to see if anyone had items that I needed for my installation. And so this piano was one of those items, and that's so great. And there's actually a plaque on it that says who donated it in memory of, I believe, her mother-in-law. So it was cool to kind of put that into the installation. But here you can see all the trophies as well that are on top of the piano. And also big shout out to my installation, my lead installer, Dig Divine. Dig was provided to me by the Mattress Factory during my residency. And because I was not there, Dig created all of this for me. So shout out to Dig. But here's the trophies. And oh, and I also mentioned Dig because Dig is our anonymous creator for sheet music that is on there. That is the prologue of the Brotherhood. So if you play the piano, you can try to play the sheet music that's on there. So and then behind that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's a real song. It's a real, like
yeah,
you have
so
really
during
this out in all areas.
Yeah, so I created a kind of prologue text document that I had for the Society of 23 about 10 years ago. During this process, because the piano came into play and Dig was like, I know music. I was like, and Dig was like, do you need anything like musical in it? And I was like, I have text. Do you want to write a song to the text? So we collaborated in that way, and boom, the song's right there on the piano.
Wow, and I love, I mean, not only just like, the old, upright piano, which like, it's like a staple in any kind of, community center or rec room, or, it just nailed it once again, it's like, it's just spot on with the aesthetic, but the coverings for the bench and that folding chair.
I made those here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then I mailed them out to Pittsburgh. And those were some of my favorite moments too. I got to use my sewing skills in this installation, which I was really happy about. But yeah, the gold fringe, and they're kind of like a felt glittery fabric that has the Society of 23 that we put in gold paint on top of it. It's just so kitschy. I love it.
Yeah, and it just has that, it just has that old Rust Belt, like just feeling. I mean, and I haven't like, I'm not, it is, and also like when we're talking about how people imagine what is American, like this is what I imagine of like the Rust Belt aesthetic.
Absolutely.
Or even a Midwestern, I mean, I guess the working class American aesthetic kind of thing, but like kind of old, kind of worn out with some, but gussied up with some glitter.
Right. It's funny to think about the Brotherhood as this place where I want to fantasize a reality, but that fantasy is a folding chair, is a piano with like nicks and stuff in it and scratches. Like that's the real to me.
Well, did you feel like, have you, visiting places like this, like when you were in like Pittsburgh, or I guess in Grand Rapids, there were places that looked like this, right?
Right. I think, yeah.
But I mean, did you feel like, because it looks like all of this is about you. I mean, did you feel like a lack of like belonging or history in those places? Like you,
yeah,
black, when you were visiting or something.
Yeah, I find the spaces that I can still feel comfortable. For example, Here's a random example, Western two-stepping, like dancing in dance halls and things like that. I've been to them before, and it's just hetero couples dancing, man's leading a woman. When I lived in San Francisco, I went to gay two-stepping, and that was so much fun. And there were stars hanging from the ceiling, and like, it is this thing that one would think has this one aesthetic, and then boom, you can shift it, and it's just a different aesthetic for the group, a different group, but we're still doing the same thing here. This is my aesthetic for a room that is great. You know, early on, I thought that this great room should have like deer heads hanging and like giant American flags and guns everywhere, but the trophy game room became something else once I, as the artist, you know, touched it, or in this case, remotely touched it.
And I think we have a close-up of the plaques, right? The ones on the wall. I think, is that the next one? I'm hoping. Yay!
Yes.
Here, so this is you and all the brothers.
This is some of the brothers who have won. Yep. And so this I actually put side by side to reference Felix Gonzalez Torres's clocks, untitled clocks. And I love appropriation. And so on the left, I believe I appropriated the Guggenheim Fellowship. And on the right, I appropriated the MacArthur Grant, which is the
Guggenheim is demonstrates exceptional capacity for productive scholarship and creativity.
Yeah, so everything but that top line is word for word from what that award is. I think the left, I believe the left is maybe the Hugo Boss Prize, maybe, and then the right is the MacArthur Genius Grant, the MacArthur Grant.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, so I just thought that was a playful take on the art world, you know. But yes, the Brotherhood has their own fellowship and their own,
like manifesting future.
I hope, because apparently I only think awards are the best. So, you know.
Yeah, make it happen, you know, put it out there.
Yeah.
And what is the next one? This one I don't know much about. So
yeah, so this is what I was gonna talk about. Is the other largest component is a video component. And so once you walk off the elevators on this floor, the first thing that you approach is this pong table, black wooden beer pong table that all the brothers' names are scratched into it. And then there's all these beer pong cups and then beer ping pong balls. There's also a sign-in guest book. The large image of me in the middle is actually a projection screen. And there, right around the corner, is another television screen that is also playing the exact same thing. The video component in this installation is the first episode of a reality show called The Fabulous Society of 23. And this first episode is an hour long, and it's completely on mute. And there are subtitles to the episode, and the subtitles are word for word the lines from the US Constitution. So we talked about a living document just like 20 minutes ago. This is the living document visualized. And so as you're walking through the space, as you're moving through the space, you can see a video that has these dudes like talking to each other. And so I've created it so that it looks like the brothers are in the same space. You never see both of them together in the same frame, but they are talking to each other. And shout out to my partner, who was my camera person here in my studio when I created this. So I said that this was all done in remotely. So this portion of the installation was a video portion that I created in my studio, just like I am now with this foil curtain that is an illusion that I'm in that installation, right? So the 1 hour video takes you through the entire US Constitution if you feel like reading it, while watching cliche reality moments like someone flipping over a table because they're mad about something, or another person, or they're playing beer pong, or they're playing poker. So there's all these kind of cliche moments with text like until the next meeting of the legislature.
There's a table flip while reading the Constitution, while reciting the Constitution. That is hilarious.
Right.
Wow, I do need to see this video. You sent me a
I
clip,
hope to
right?
put it up soon. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that sometime. But wow, that's amazing. And then I see all the medals.
Yep. So those are 23 medals. I asked all the brothers to provide a first gold medal if they could. So there's a whole rack of them. And then this slide here is ribbons for different events at the Brotherhood. So some are custom, like the one on the left, but otherwise you can order awards online. If you didn't know that, you can now award yourself with something by simply buying it online.
Oh, but this is really, and wait, you said you were doing this, I mean, 10 years ago. How long have you been working? Because this seems like a long-term, how long has this project been in?
Yeah, I started the Society of 23 in 2008, right after undergrad. So it's been going on for about 13 years.
Wow. And so it's like, wow, you've just been growing and growing and developing and, oh.
That's right.
And this is still going on because you eventually, want to do, you were saying a multi-room so you could like.
Yeah, give me the Park Avenue Armory anytime. I'll fill it with rooms.
No, but actually Park Avenue Armory is kind of perfect because it has like the upstairs, has like, if you've been to TAFAF and like the upstairs rooms, it has that old school, aesthetic, like exactly. The floors and the old architectural elements. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, we got to find out who to talk to for that. That sounds like
yeah.
Do we have any more slides? And let's, I guess, go back to one of the first one, just so. And do we have any questions about the work? You can raise your hand or put something in chat. And so all of this time, I was like, where was I was thinking of another place I wanted to go with this. So you have the team and the beauty pageant, and so they're only competing against each other, right?
That's the thing. It's unclear. So for example, these 23 bros that have just won this massive trophy cup in this large photograph you see on the left, they're all celebrating together, but like, who were they against? Right? So it's still a little unclear as to what's happening in all of this, but it's assumed, you can assume that they are only competing against each other.
Yeah, like the beauty pageant, I can see that it seems like they're only competing each other, but the team, the baseball team, there could be, another group of clones or
Correct.
I don't even know, 23 uplets or something.
Right.
I don't even know what the term is for 23 and tuplets.
Exactly, me neither.
And then Pamela Casacuberta has a question. When someone visits or views the installation, how do they know to explore all the layers of personality and history that you've developed for the characters?
That's a great question. Thank you. The history is unknown. So I, as the artist, am constantly trying to figure out what a new visitor will experience. And this specific installation has a lot of text and you can see years. So you can see, for example, the pageants, just the years that they were. Each photo has like 2015, 2016, 2017, right? And so there's kind of that immediate history that you can start forming in your head, like, okay, they do this every year. But you don't know that they've been hazed, right? You don't know what they have been through in 2008 to get to where they are now. And I love that that's a little bit of our human experiences, our individual experiences. I don't know anyone's baggage. No one knows my trauma, right? But I think I think this is kind of exploring that, how did they get there type thing. So just your question is, yeah, I don't, sometimes I have that text, like a description, exhibition statement, something like that. That's like, hey, they have a history, there's something here. But I do depend a little bit on our new way of seeing work, which is, I like this artist, let me go to his Instagram, right? So then there's all this other stuff and history that can be seen on the Society of 23's Instagram account, on my own personal website. That's kind of a long-winded answer too. There's a lot of stuff, but also it's not immediately important to the experience of this installation.
And Beth O'Grady has a question. She said, you have bocce, beer pong, and foosball in the installation. Can you talk about the significance of each of these to you as an artist?
Absolutely. So as you can see again with the bocce court, the way this photo is, you know, it looks a little like a body part, if you will, you know, with the balls at the bottom and the whole long stretch going down. So, and then the foosball has that communal kind of that community gathering around the table. What was the other one? What was the other sport? Oh, beer pong. And then I also had beer pong was a major sport in college. And I loved playing it and I loved being very good at it. So I wanted to bring that back. Also, our own beer pong in our fraternity house had our names carved into it as well. So, you know, I wanted to do that for these brothers, to have them have another form of multiplying, right? And a lot of my work is self-portrait photography, but also I've written letters where I then sign each brother's name. There are multiple ways to depict or represent ourselves, and scratching my name into a table is one way. Thank you, Dig, for doing that. And then also right here, you can see a chair in this photo, right on the bottom left corner. That's also a poker table. So the bros also play poker, or just play cards, or have tarot readings. And then there's a TV above it, and then there's an Xbox connected to it. So you can see this video game console that they also play with. So these kind of games had like a feeling of luxury, a feeling of leisure, also some personal references like I just shared. And yeah, thanks.
And I also just thought about, you know, we're looking at the aesthetic. You know, even though like, you know, the beauty pageant, but most of, but it's on this aesthetic, you know, of like this, you know, Rust Belt or working class, but everything's masculine. Like you're not like, there's a lot of masculinity, and like you were making some decisions, like, you know, you chose, you know, a lot of things that signified masculinity, like hunting, like the deer's heads, or guns, you know, and you know, or something that like could signify a MAGA hat. And you know, with your, you know, fraternity experience in undergrad, you know, what is I guess, what is your take on like you know, and the hazing and stuff like that? You know, what is your take on like, you know, just expressions of masculinity in your life and your work?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've always had a challenge of trying to depict masculinity and what those parameters are within America, especially as a child actor. I could never be a man because I'm 5 feet 4 inches. I'm not tall enough, you know, I'm not white enough. I'm not, maybe my voice is low enough, but there are these parameters that we need to meet, that people need to meet in the context of America. And that has just always been challenging to me. I tried to meet those parameters in college. I tried to be straight, it did not work. But I could surround myself with the people who were meeting such parameters. So when I make my artwork and I'm creating these fantasy worlds, you can see that tension and that conflict and that struggle, you know, while this is such a masculine room, or at least feels quite masculine, I think, you know, these sports, these things, these like the sports and the trophies, like they feel quite masculine, but let's not forget that there's foil curtains surrounding the, you know, perimeter of this room, or there's a pink neon sign, or there's these, you know, these characters with pageant sashes all around them, right? So there's clearly there's maybe an expansion of a gender here, or an expansion of an idea that I'm trying to express. And at least for me, as I've you know, become, as I'm consuming pop culture and seeing something like Drag Race come into the picture, RuPaul's Drag Race, it's so cool for me to see how pop culture is also kind of expanding its definitions of what feminine and masculine, these binary things are. And maybe within my work, I'm also exploring that in some way.
Yeah, I see a lot of the tension, you know, with that, and also I'm thinking, you know, where the pageant the pageant portrait photos, you know, they're printed on like what the kind of a blanket thing. I think, I don't know if you watched 90 Day Fiance, but one of the women, she made a blanket with the picture of her fiance, and it was really creepy. And like when you were telling me about the serpent, but you know, it takes something, you know, for one thing, it makes the image softer, but also it's warm, it's soft, it's comforting, you know, this the surface of the photographic print.
Right.
And so yeah, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of tension, you know, between, you know, the you know, what is considered masculine, and what is not, and the setting, and, you know, and then what you're and then we also want to go back to Beth was talking about, you know, the poker table, but she was also talking about the tarot, and like, and Pam, she had to sign off, but you know, she was loving the direction of the tarot going there.
Yeah, you know, I shared that just now because I love very small moments, and like deciding to put a deck of cards on the table is fine to play poker, but like also being like, you know, I personally, I love tarot, so why don't I include that? But you know, spirituality in itself comes up for me within my work. I grew up like super Catholic, so like I think about that as I do my work. But the brothers, you know, slogan is faith, action, brotherhood. And so the medals actually that you saw hanging there on that rack are called the Fabbies, the Fabbies, the Fabbies. So faith is something that's within my work, and I'm not like a practicing Christian now, but it is something that is certainly interesting to me, and certainly a guiding principle for Americans. You know, we see God a lot in American conversations, so text and documents. So certainly important.
I was trying to cough on mute, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, we have separated church and state. Not really. Not at all.
Not really.
Not at all. And everything does have like God, and meaning the Christian God in our documents. And that freedom of religion really didn't mean much. It was just a freedom to practice another form of Christianity. And Beth O'Grady would add, it has some of the feel of a living history museum, like replacing the cards on the table, etc. Because it does look like, you know, you could. That's why I said earlier in the talk that it's going to be tempting for visitors not, you know, to touch things, because it looks like it's ready to, you know, the installation looks like, you know, it looks so lived in, and it looks like, you know, it's inviting the viewer to like play some bocce, or, you know, or play the sheet music, or play some cards.
Yeah, my favorite thing that happened the first weekend of the show was that I looked for the hashtag Society of 23 on Instagram, and sure enough, someone posted something on Instagram based on the and was a photo within this installation, And that photo was the person had taken a sash off its rack and wore it and put a crown on and took a selfie. And this is not the first time people have touched things in my installation, but I responded to that account and said, at this time, the brothers are not accepting any new members, but we'll let you know when applications are open. And Dig had also said something on that person's account. And the person replied that they didn't realize that the person said that they thought they were supposed to imitate the photos, the pageant photos on the wall. So it's just fascinating how people can respond to something that looks so lived in, because that is how I depicted it. I mean, I want you to believe that 23 people are using this space, especially, of course, during the pandemic. We can't really touch much things. So at the beginning of this, I wanted to have people play bocce. I wanted people to sit and play poker and video games, but we decided not to allow people to touch it. But they are unattended. Each room within the museum is unattended. So we can only hope that people won't touch anything. But my favorite thing about it too is that if we were going to allow people to play with the bocce court, there's actually a James Turrell permanent installation underneath. And the exhibitions manager was like, we need to make sure that it doesn't disrupt. So they would have to test the balls hitting the ground to make sure that James Turrell's piece wasn't like being disturbed. And I just thought that was so cool. Like, this is a time in my career where I get to say that my installation might be affecting James Turrell's installation downstairs.
Like your house you're in the same building. That's great. And and so Bethel Gray says, you know, she loves that it became interactive. And Alan Balicki, am I saying it right? Balicki or Balicki? It's my father's basement social club meets the entry to Studio 54. I appreciate the years of thought and evolving over time. Thank you, Jeffrey and Charlene. But thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, and I really love this. And I just want to ask, we have a couple minutes left. Now, this is open till November. So is there going to be any programming attached to this? Are you going to be in Pittsburgh? Are there going to be any fun things to do?
Yeah, so currently, actually, Mattress Factory just distributed out months to different artists who were part of the residency. And this is my month, I just learned today. So I am going to Pittsburgh later this year, which is really exciting because later this month, because I'm going to see the installation for the first time in person. But there is some programming, some public programming, as well as member programming. So I could certainly update you both, and maybe you could share with your community. But I think everything will be obviously virtual. But yes, there's definitely programming happening.
So can you play the piano? Are you going to be able to play the thing on the sheet music?
Jeffrey Augustine doesn't know how to play the piano, but maybe there's a brother who does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this could be interesting. There are so many possibilities of what you could do in this installation when you go down there.
So many.
And is there anything, I think we're gonna sign off, unless there's any other questions or anything you want to add. I would like to thank you. I mean, it's funny that I didn't know that we had work in the same exhibition in Seattle. Yeah, I just today, I spoke to Jody Linky Chow, as I did some photographs with her that was only part of her thing, and it's like, oh yeah, like Jeffrey, yeah, you we're in the same show. I'm like, so surprise. It has been a pleasure. I love this work. I look forward to watching your video, and please keep me updated with the programming.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Thank you. And Esmé, thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I really appreciate your support, and we'll be doing this again next week. I'm going to sign off now. Bye.